Hello everyone, my name is Jeff Neville and welcome to Selective Imagery. Welcome to Thanks for the Memories, Part 25, the 1947 David White Stereo Realist 3D camera. Hello, this is Jeff Neville for Selective Imagery, and here I am with another episode, Part 25, of our series called Thanks for the Memories, where we talk about real cameras, vintage cameras, and go over how they work and share with you different unusual cameras that you may or may not have seen before. So on this particular episode, we're going to be talking about the 1947 David White Stereo Realist, model 1041, which happened to have an f3.5 35 millimeter lens. And I will show you what it looks like here briefly. Pretty heavy, pretty strange looking. You're like, where are the lenses? Where are the lenses? Well, they're underneath this cover that opens up. It's not removable. And you've got three lenses. Stereo cameras have three lenses. We'll get into what they're called in a little bit. So when you look at this, your viewfinder lens, or your viewfinder objective lens, they call this. It has a couple knobs on it that you grab to turn, and you can adjust your shutter speeds. The other two outside lenses are called your matched objective lenses, and they're matched together. Okay, if I turn the outer wheel of one lens, it turns the opposite lens. Okay, and that's for changing your f-stops. Okay, your f-stop numbers are on this side, but as you rotate this, it rotates that one as well and matches it. I'm going to close this for now. This little lever is to cock your shutter. Okay, the shutter does not self-cock. And the biggest problem I have with this camera, really the only problem I have with this camera, is when you go to use it, you're usually holding it like this, okay? And right away there's a problem. Do you know what the problem is? Your natural way of holding this camera is a problem. Because look, I'm covering up rangefinder on both sides. So you got to hold it a little bit different than normal, because if you block one of these, either one, you're not going to be able to focus. That's my biggest complaint with it. You know, on each side of the camera you have a little retaining clip for running your camera strap through. On the right hand side, when you're looking at the camera from the rear, this is where you're focused from. Your focus wheel is here on the side, and it is a very, very accurate split image that you line up, and it is easy to focus. I mean, the best I've ever seen. I mean, really, really good. Bottom, you just have a lever here that you move to the opposite side, that'll release the back cover, and the back cover is not hinged to get it to film. It just comes right off. And you have your tripod socket, okay, over here, right there. You look at the top. Okay. Over here is your film advance knob. Then you have a switch. Here, there's a letter A. Okay. And that's for film advance. So you have that little dot in this direction to advance the film, and you flip it this other direction to rewind the film. And then this is your film counter. Tells you how many shots you've taken. Over here, your flash sync, your flash shoe. This is like a little indicator letting you know if you're successfully took the shot, the film advanced. It's supposed to have a red dot here. Mine kind of sticks. Sometimes the dot will show up after I take a picture and wind it. Sometimes it doesn't. It's a little intermittent, but doesn't affect the operation of the camera. Then you got your shutter speed, and then of course you have your over in this corner, like I said, this is your film advance, this is your rewind knob. Now when you look at the back, this is what you look through for composing. This is your viewfinder window, and you look through this one to focus. Okay, this little protrusion up here sticking out, you see it better here. When you want to advance the film, you have to push that in temporarily. You push it in briefly as you start to advance the film. Once you start turning the knob, you can let go of that and it'll pop out a little bit, and then it'll rewind and increment to the next shot number. Okay, but you have to push that in briefly as you turn the film advance knob, and then let go of it and it'll push itself out, and you keep turning the advance until it stops, and then this should click one number ahead, and then you're ready to basically at that point, you decide what your f-stop and shutter speed is going to be, and then you advance and cock your shutter, and then you can take the picture. So let's do that. We will cock the shutter, and very quiet. It's very quiet. Now I have to hold that button down briefly while I advance the film and then let go of it. And basically as you turn it and it gets as far as it can go, that knob will pop out all the way. This little nub will pop out all the way. And then, like I said, then you just, cock the shutter. You're ready to take a picture again. So this camera came in two models. This is the 1041 with the what they call matched Cook type anastigmat lens, 3 elements, 35mm f3.5. The model 1042 had a 4-element 35mm f2.8 lens. The maximum shutter speed on this camera is 1/150th of a second. The 1042 model could go to 1/200th of a second. The shutter speed range on this particular model is 1 second to 1/150th plus time and bulb mode. This camera was designed by Seaton Rochwhite and was manufactured by the David White company, and was the best-selling stereo camera of all time. It has the rangefinder focusing system, separate viewfinder for composition, takes photos using 35mm film in what's called the 5P stereo format, also known as Realist, therefore the name, the stereo Realist camera. Body was die-cast aluminum with an aluminum finish. This camera was used quite a lot by celebrities in the 1940s, or should say, 1950s, such as silent film star named Harold Lloyd, who took portraits of Marilyn Monroe, Betty Page, to name a few, and he actually formed a stereo camera club that had a lot of his close friends, many of them who were Hollywood types, such as Vincent Price, John Wayne, Edgar Bergen, Bob Hope, to name a few people that owned and used this camera and were a member of his club. And the camera remained popular even into the 1960s. The image format was 25.4 millimeters wide by 23.42 millimeters high. Aperture adjustable from f3.5 to f22. The shutter was behind the lenses, had to be cocked, which we already talked about, with the lever in the front. It had the additive frame counter, which was numbered 1 through 36. Okay, right here. And let's see, it had provisions for a cable release. I am assuming, it doesn't even show it in the manual, I'm assuming it's this little threaded hole right here, just in front of the shutter release button. And this camera is really solid, well built. You're actually moving the film plane when you're focusing with it. And this non-removable cover is great because you put this in the camera bag, you got other stuff in there, nothing's going to scratch the lenses. Okay, it's all protected. And it reminds you, if you think you're going to go and use it and take a picture, it's pretty easy to notice if this isn't flipped up, you're not getting a shot, so you're not going to be wasting a shot. Now, like I said, what's inconvenient is when you hold this camera, not blocking these rangefinder areas here in the corners, and when you're focusing, when you're actually using the camera, you gotta put your eyes at the bottom of the camera, because that's where your viewfinder is and that's where your rangefinder window is. So you gotta hold it up high. So that's kind of a pain in the neck. Obviously, you got a rangefinder, you got a Leica, an M or something, it's up at the top. This one is at the bottom. So it has a few quirks that are slightly inconvenient. Let's see. When you're loading modern 30, you got to use 35 millimeter slide film, and the way film is made today is different from how it was made back when this camera was out. Back in the day, the camera had a very long leader. Now, a new roll of film has where it necks down, and it's not very tall, very wide, or should I say high. It isn't a long length. So I'm going to take the back off this camera in a second. Just so I show you what I had to do to be able to advance the film properly in this camera. I just got a roll of film in here that is a sacrificial lamb. Give me a second, I'm getting there. I guess I had almost advanced it all the way through the 24 shots. So now I'll hold it up and you can see the film. And you can see up here where I cut it. I had to cut it with a pair of scissors because the leader, the narrower part of the leader is not long enough. And if you put a normal roll of film in here, it's going to jam up. It's not going to work. This little strip here underneath that is where the gear is, the teeth are to pick up on that's where the sprocket is to pick up on the holes on the film. And you have to have it cut so that you start picking it up underneath this little strip. Okay, the rest has to be short in height. So you got to go like, I think I have it written down here. You got to go 10 sprocket holes over when you trim it to make the leader longer length. So you got to go over 10 sprocket holes. Now this camera sold for $160 in 1949, which was a pretty good chunk of change for back then, and equivalent to over $2,200 today. Now, what makes us, I'm not going to be able to see this. I'll joke with you a little bit. Raise your hands if you say lots of times your pictures don't look like you remember it looking like through your eyes when you were actually there. Well, that's because you're not going to get an image you see with your eyes. You see in 3 dimensions. You have extreme depth. You have a 3D vision, basically, as a human being. Okay? A standard 35mm camera can't replicate that. Can't replicate what you see with your eye in a 3D way. Okay? It's a 2-dimensional. It's not 3D. A 3D camera can. And how it does that is it has the lens in the middle, which is the viewing lens, and it has the 2 on the outside. Well, the 2 on the outside are about 2.5 inches apart. Simulates the distance between your eyes. Roughly 2.5 inches. Some people might be more or less. I don't know what the tolerance is on your separation of your eyeballs, but 2.5 inches is what they use for these stereo cameras. And it takes 2 slightly different perspectives of the same scene, one representing what your left eye would see and one representing what your right eye would see. And it takes them both at the same time. Okay? So you're not going to get as many images. You're not going to get 36 exposures out of a 36 exposure roll. You're going to get what they call 28 stereo pairs of images out of a 36 exposure roll. And you'd have to have a special stereo viewfinder in order to see these images. And like I said, it's slide film, and it's not mounted. Each image is not mounted in a standard slide that you would put into your slide projector if you were shooting Kodachrome 64 or something, with your 35mm camera, and you got the small square slide. This is a long slide where you've got this stereo pair of images that are on this cardboard slide holder, and the images are spaced apart, and they have to be put into a special viewer for you to see it in 3 dimensions. So the film is exposed, developed using a standard E6 process, and like I said, put in special slide mounts, and you can actually buy a stereo projector if you wanted to. They still have them. People still sell them on eBay. And the 3D, you get that illusion of depth, okay, that you can't get with a regular camera. You actually feel like you're there, like it was when you were there looking at it with your naked eye. And many manufacturers made stereo cameras. Some were made in England. Kodak made some that were really plasticky and didn't weigh anything. And I'm not saying that they didn't work okay, but they weren't built like this camera is. So you'd have to get a stereoscope, which is a device for viewing stereoscopic pair of separate images, like I said, depicting your left eye and your right eye views. And there are still niche services out there that mount stereo slides. Now, there was a company called 3D.com that I found, or Berezin Stereo photography products. Now I went to their sites because the internet said they developed and mounted these images, but I went to their sites and they no longer develop the film. You have to get the film, slide film developed. You got to tell the person doing the developing, do not cut the images. Don't cut the slides and mount them. Just develop it and leave it and send it back to you. Then you send it to them and they will cut it and mount these stereoscopic pairs of images on the wider slide mounts appropriately, and that costs like $70 a roll to have them mounted, not counting your developing costs. And if you remember, if you were a kid, you had a Viewmaster when you were a kid, and if you got lucky enough to go to a national park or Niagara Falls or something like that, and they'd always sell, a little package of pictures taken of the falls that you could put in your Viewmaster camera, and when you look through that, everything was 3D. Now, these cameras trick the brain into seeing a three-dimensional image because it mimics how your eye perceived the world by capturing those two separate images, 2.5 inches apart. And so it exploits a process called stereopsis. The brain will then combine these two images, interpreting the small difference or disparity to create the perception of depth. Your brain constantly uses cues from the two eyes to create a 3D model of the world when you're out there in real life. So you have the difference in the images received by the left and the right eye is called binocular disparity or retinal disparity. The brain analyzes this horizontal shift to calculate the object's distance. The brain merges the two retinal images into a single cohesive 3D image called stereopsis. An object that has a large disparity between the left and right eye's view is being perceived as being close, while an object with a small disparity is seen as being far away. And like I said, now the way you can see this 3D image is you can get 3D glasses or polarized glasses. They filter the superimposed images on a screen so that only the correct images reach the eye. If you have virtual reality headsets now that they display two images on separate screens inside the headset with lenses to make sure each eye sees a distinct perception. Special displays, some monitors and TVs use lenticular technology to display 3D images without the need for glasses even. And when the images are presented correctly, your brain automatically combines them, interpreting the disparity as depth and completing the illusion of a single three-dimensional scene. So you are not going to get, like it's in the real world, when you're using your normal camera and you say, it never quite looks like how I remember it. That's because it can't show it to you in the same way that a 3D camera can, which is how you remember it. So, for some people it might be worth, getting something like this and fooling around with it. I mean, obviously it's not cost effective by the time you pay for film developing, and then that extra cost for them to cut the slides and put them in the special mounts, and then you got to go buy the special viewfinder or the special projector in order to see the effect. It gets up there, but it is kind of neat as a collectible. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It's an interesting camera. And they're not overly expensive. I mean, I've seen all different prices on them, believe me. I mean, I've seen, and without actually buying some of the ones that are cheaper, I mean, you'll see sometimes, selling for $60 or something like that. Excuse me, but I mean, don't necessarily buy the cheapest one you see. That's what I'll tell you. Be very picky about what you get. This is a fully functional camera that I would say is it's not in mint condition, but I'd say it's in excellent condition. Well, you know, just when I thought I was done with this video, I make the mistake of calling my buddy Gustavo up, who supports me on the live stream portion of my channel, and he says, "You didn't get the viewer? You don't have any slides?" He says, "You got to get that stuff." So, you know, I thought about it for a while, and then I kind of looked for one, and I ended up kind of getting a little more than I thought. Um, I got a boxed, in the original box, the Stereo Realist Ever-Ready case. Case looks real nice, except for the rivets on the back that hold the flap don't snap anymore. Okay, they're stuck here. Okay, and they'd have to get re-riveted. But other than that, I mean, the case is pretty nice. So I put my camera in it that I had, and then what I got was obviously the case. I got another camera. The other camera works 98% of it works. The time mode does not work for the shutter speed. Bulb mode works, and 1 second to 1/50th of a second works fine, but the time mode does not. So I have two cameras. I was able to get, in its original box, excuse me, making noise here, the original flash. There we go. I don't have any bulbs for it, but that is the original Stereo Realist photo flash from the David White Company. Okay, there we go. Not that I don't have a PDF copy, but I have an original manual for the camera, which I didn't have. And probably more importantly, I'm going to put the camera down because I've already talked about the camera for quite a while already. The main thing, I got the Stereo Realist viewer in the original box. And this is what the viewer looks like. The red knob you turn to focus once you have this up to your eyes. Okay. The slot you see above the chrome lever is where you drop in the slide. The red button lights up the slide, backlights the slide. It looks like now that I burned the bulb out from fooling around with it. I'll have to buy a new bulb, but when you push this red button, it lights it up. Take my word for it. The slides, this is what they look like mounted. Okay, so I got a group of slides that came with it. Some are Ektachrome. And some are Kodachrome. Okay, so this is what I talked about before. This is the stereo pair. Okay, because when you take a picture, you're actually taking two that are 2.5 inches apart. So when you put in a 36 exposure roll, you don't get 36 images. I believe I said earlier you get 28. If my memory serves me correctly. So what's nice, you just take the slide, drop it in, look through, push the red button, and adjust your focus. And I'll tell you, 3D image knocks your socks off. You know, you talk about, you know, getting 1.2 lenses because you want separation between the foreground and the background and portraits and stuff like that. I got this stack. Okay. One of the shots in there was of a woman sitting in a chair, sitting at a desk, and the isolation between her and the background was absolutely stunning and amazing. I mean, she looked like she was right in front of you, and the background was like such separation, something that you're never going to accomplish with a typical camera that you're shooting with today. And another thing that I got with this was this cute little device. Okay, this is so that you can look at the slide in the daytime, and okay, you just drop the slide in, and you know, you just look through it. If you got enough light in the room, or you hold it up to the sky or whatever, you're going to see the image, and it's in 3D. So I got two viewers. I got the heavy duty one that has this screw here that you remove, and this piece comes off, and you have 2D batteries in there. Now I got to find a bulb. That's unfortunate. It worked just the other day. Now it doesn't. So I'm sure I burned the bulb out. Well, the bulb's probably, you know, over 50 years old anyway. No surprise there. But I thought I would share that because all I can tell you is I can understand why 3D cameras did have their niche. And a lot of people really loved them. And now, unfortunately, unlike a regular 35 millimeter camera or 120 film camera or anything, you know, where you're making prints and you can put the prints in a photo album and you can pass them around and everybody can flip through the photo album like we did when I was a lot younger. You know, with this, it's the sharing part is the difficult part, because everybody gets to pass this around and look through it, and which isn't in one slide at a time, or they did make 3D slide projectors, which that I'm not going to invest in because I don't plan on. Maybe I'll try this camera once sometime down the road. But I'm not going to be taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures where I can justify investing in a 3D slide projector. But just thought I would share, since I did talk about, you know, sending how you would have to send your film, get your film developed, your slide film developed, and not have it trimmed and mounted, and then send it out to somebody who would then mount it in these special slide holders, and then you could put it in either one of the viewers I just showed you, and you can enjoy the images, and man, they look really good. They look really good. It's amazing what technology can do. But anyway, just wanted to add this to what I had already recorded, and I'll put it all together. And once again, you know, thank you for your support and watching the channel. I did pick up the Kodak 3D camera not too long ago. I don't want this video to be 2 hours long, so I may do another video talking about the Kodak version of this camera, which realistically would have far outsold this one. It was less than half the price, but they didn't make it for very many years, whereas the stereo Realist David White stereo Realist camera they made for a lot longer, which is the only reason why it was the #1 seller 3D camera, more because of the length of time they made it. But if Kodak had made their camera for the same amount of years, I mean, it would have far outsold the David White. But it's not made. It's not a badly made camera. The Kodak, it had a little more weight in it than I thought it would. It's made pretty decent. It's not metal like the David White. I mean, and the David White is made is more rugged and whatnot, but the Kodak one, not bad, especially for the dollars. So I'll end it with that, and like I said, thanks for watching. Enjoy life, capture some of it. Like I say, get out there and get some shots, no matter what kind of camera you use. And if you have a 3D camera, maybe you're willing to spend the cost of the film, developing an extra $70, and then having a viewer to show it and try it out and see how it works. But it could be very, very interesting. So have a good one.